phase one entrepreneurship was you're trying to figure it out, right? You're starting and you're like, what am I going to do in life? Right. So I'm selling vegetables. I'm distributing paneer. I was in scrap metal in a big way and,
Wait,
experimenting in all these businesses.
vegetables, paneer distributor,
Yeah.
and scrap metal.
That's scrap metal.
Okay.
Hustling and trying to figure it out. What am I going to do? Then real estate, then computer hardware, then computer software. That, I would say that was phase two, was when you're in the software business, you actually see scale. Bootstrapping to 120 employees in Vancouver, pretty cool.
Very cool.
Right? So then the phase two was really solid, all those lessons, right? Angel investment lessons, all that. Now in phase three, it's like, okay, you're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for anything except the purpose.
Welcome to High Agency, igniting conversations with inspiring people, leading transformative change. There's something really compelling about people who look at the world, see problems worth solving, and then actually go and solve them. The essence of entrepreneurship is that impulse. It's the refusal to accept things the way they are and imagining something better. It starts with a spark of restlessness, some amount of impatience, a willingness to take a risk that most people wouldn't, and a stubborn belief that you can build something from nothing. But what separates the people who do it once from the people who do it as a way of life is something harder to name. Maybe it's the way they're wired, a compulsion to keep exploring, to keep iterating, keep learning, even after you've had that exit and could comfortably stop. But that's the part of the story that we're used to hearing. There's another, sometimes quieter side, where entrepreneurs start sharing the lessons. These are lessons that they've accumulated about sales, about leadership, about surviving the moments when everything's about to fall apart. And this is when mentorship becomes its own form of building. You're no longer building a company, you're shaping the people who will build the next companies. And it's the humility to remain a mentee yourself, to keep learning from others even as you teach. And that might be the rarest quality of them all. These rare qualities exist in Vik Khanna. Vik is a Vancouver-based tech entrepreneur and the founder of the Visual Thinking Company. He co-founded Faronics in 1996, growing it from a computer hardware business into a global edtech leader over 2 decades. He's a past president and board member of TIE Vancouver, where Vik spent years mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs, including high school students, through the Young Entrepreneurs Program. Now, Vik is back as president of this organization once again, and he's ready to apply a whole new set of experiences and lessons to fuel something that he calls Phase 3 entrepreneurship. Welcome, Vik.
Thank you for having me. Mo, this is way overdue. We've known each other for going on almost 2 decades now.
Yeah, and I'm really bad at keeping up with you for coffee or lunch, but this we made happen. So this is good.
Also, I just want to say we share something that's very powerful, which is to foster entrepreneurs. The space you have here, for example, I've been here many times and you're not here. And that's because you allow other people to use the space. So you're giving back to the community in ways that are very profound. And that's what I think is our duty and our role at our age and our wisdom. And that's kind of where I start with, what does phase 3 entrepreneurship mean? It means you're not necessarily doing it for money. You're absolutely not doing it for money. You don't need money when you're in phase 3 entrepreneurship, but you need purpose. So what is your purpose? You've figured it out, actually. So then you can look at things such as, what is the definition of a company? Is a company a vehicle for private enrichment? Or is a company a group of people with an aligned goal and purpose? So now you can look at it as phase 3. Let's look at it as a group of people with aligned goal and purpose. So that's now then the Visual Thinking Company and the newest manifestation of what I'm doing, and also applying that to the nonprofit that I've been a TIE charter member now for 17 years. And that shaped a lot of who I am today, because that mentorship relationship that you mentioned, When you get mentored, it's amazing. When you mentor others, it's even more amazing. But mentorship is always a two-way street. So you learn and you stay young and you get wiser. So you get older too. But the wisdom is all about what I would call pattern recognition. So businesses, entrepreneurship, humanity, human behavior, philosophy, psychology, it's all based on certain patterns. So once you can apply a more systems thinking to these patterns, you can see an entrepreneur doing something on a scale that is amazing in a different time and place, but it's not being applied somewhere else.
Mhm.
So then that's where you can create those lateral and orthogonal connections and make some magic happen. So it's all about relationships. At the end, you're not going to own anything except your relationships.
And you've always been good at that because even TIE, so it's TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs. I mean, it's a global organization. There's chapters all over the place, like tens of thousands of members. And I hadn't even heard of this group until you actually. I think the first meetups, the first gatherings, like it was actually our connection and you inviting me and saying, "Hey, you should come check this out."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like you're constantly sort of inviting people to things. And that's the Vic that I know today. But I kind of want to go back to the beginning, because I think sometimes, especially these days, like even the term entrepreneur has really become like a brand and carries a lot of meaning, and it's a loaded term.
Yeah.
And if we go back to the '90s now, when you first started Faronics, I mean, did you know you were an entrepreneur, or were you um, out to start a company? Were you just solving a problem? Like, how did that get started?
Well, this is quite amazing. So I would say I almost never had a job in my life, never applied for a job. Now I did twice, because my dad said you're unemployable. So I said, well, I have to prove you wrong. So I can get a job. So I got a job at Bata Shoes in Brentwood Mall, and that lasted all of 6 weeks. And then I got a job at Superstore, and that lasted another 6 weeks. And so I got employed, but I'm not cut out for working.
All right, so Dad was right.
So Dad was 100% right. But Dad said, you got to become the doctor of the family, eldest of four kids. So big responsibility. Came to the country when I was 4 years old. So then my brothers were born here. My sister was born here. And as the oldest, there was some responsibility to become the family doctor. So I took sciences in high school. I was a B student. I went to Langara College, took more science courses, a B student. But the arts courses I would take, I would automatically get A's without trying much. So I had my bent. I told Dad, look, I'm not going to cut out to become a doctor. He said, it's okay. I disown you, but I got other kids to work on. It wasn't that bad, but it was different. Then what do you do for a career? So I'm taking peace and conflict studies, history, psychology, sociology, and I like those courses, but what are you going to become? So I got an associate's of arts degree in peace and conflict studies. And then I took the real estate course because a friend was taking a real estate course. So then I became a real estate agent at the age of 24. And I had two rules: no friends and no family. Why? If you can prove your sales ability, you can't rely on friends and family. So how do you do business with the public if you're a realtor? So I got really good at it, for sale by owners. So I'm 24 years old, and I'd go there with two contracts. I'd say, hey, I get this game. I'm a brand new real estate agent, but, there's this thing called the MLS, which provides free service to buyers, and they're not going to find your house. So put yourself on the MLS with me, but the separate contract says if you can sell your house by yourself, pay me nothing. So 1 out of 4 appointments would close. I had 38 listings, 1 or 2 would sell every month. It was quite nice. Then next year, I challenged myself. I said, how do I find a cold buyer? So someone I don't know. Before internet, I'm sure it was around, but I didn't have an email address or it wasn't popular. But fax was.
Mm.
So I went to Future Shop and I bought this program called Dorina WinFax. I bought a modem, installed it in my dad's 46 computer, and typed out a letter to 300 travel agents saying, if you got a buyer coming in who wants to see some houses, call me. I'll be there in 1 hour. I got one call. And that was a guy named Fareed. He's like my older brother. Hi, Fareed. And he came down with his wife, Omas. They checked out Vancouver, Toronto. We became pen pal and DHL fans and sent videos back and forth, which had to be converted into that new format, NTSC or whatever, the European format versus Western format. And then on December 8th, 1995, sold him a house. He arrived, and then December 20th, sold him a house. And we became friends. And he said, I got this company that does computer hardware export, import. So why don't you help me out? And that was a start of Faronics here. We became then hardware, white box manufacturing, lots of wholesale computer parts. And then we sold hardware to a software company 2 blocks away from us. And they came to me in July 1999 and said, hey, we know you do some business with school districts. Why don't you take a look at this software product? And it was called Deep Freeze back then. So they had great branding. And I took a look at it and I said, within seconds, give me the rights to sell this. And I said, can I have all the rights for British Columbia? And they're like, you can take all of Canada. Canada's like losers. We'll kill the US. We'll go to the US. You have all Canada. And over the next year, I outsold them 10 to 1 in a 10 times smaller market, which is effectively 100 to 1. So they're after me specifically. They say, leave Faronics. We'll give you 1/3 of the company and big salary, and we'll go. And that was a challenging thing. I said, would my values allow that? If I left, my partner Freed would be out. But he's wealthy. He'd be okay. But 19 employees that we had would be out of jobs too. So I said no. And that was a wise move. So we retrained all 19 employees. And slowly over the next 2 years, we transitioned to a pure software company. And then we merged the 2 companies together and we became 4 equal owners. And that ride lasted for quite a while. And then one day I went down to Silicon Valley and there was these 2 amazing guys, ex McAfee. And I said to them, I said, hey, I'll invest $250,000 in you guys and resell your product. And they said, sure. Came back to my partnership and one partner said, well, let's copy their idea. And I said, well, you can't copy entrepreneurship. One doesn't work that way. So then pulled a shotgun and then I exited. I knew that would happen. So kind of retired at age 44, but then became an accidental angel investor. So I like those guys in California. I invested money in them personally. And that company was a raging success. They're securely today. They do a lot of internet safety and internet filtering in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So really cool.
Are you allowed to mention their name? Like
Securely.
Okay.
Yeah, securely. So about $65 million annual run rate today, US dollars. So that was an amazing investment.
Good call.
And then accidental angel investor, I invested in more companies. One of the biggest ones in Canada is a company called Jobber. And that was with Horace Wirtz and Pankaj Agarwal.
So you were an accidental angel investor, but I feel like you were also an accidental travel vlogger. Because I didn't know about your investments, but I remember following you online and you had this Escalade. And I swear to God, I think you drove that Escalade in like every corner of North America.
Well, this is a part of retiring at age 44 and having young kids. So there's a few lessons I've learned in life that I've been wise to. And one of them, somebody told me very early, was your kids grow up really fast. So if you look at it, you only have like 15 summers with them that matter. So that's not much. So then how do you maximize all those summers? How do you maximize everything? So then when I retired at age 44, became accidental angel investor, you got nothing but time. So then what do you do to occupy your time? You got young kids and you like to travel and you got this big Slade, right? My car's got a name, right? And it's 11 years old and it's part of the family. Wow. Yeah. So it's part of the family. It's not going anywhere, right? But it's been to, 49 states, 10 provinces, 1 territory, and, it's toured the kids around, right? So now that, it's part of the family and the kids learn how to drive in it on the Bonneville Salt Flats. So there's many things that I would say that have been pretty exceptional about being able to raise kids that way with so much time being trapped in a car. Our record was 47 days on the road.
Wow.
Yeah. So pretty epic in terms of travel that way. And then they've been flown to a lot of countries. So they have
I have friends
good
that
experience.
I have friends that are parents, and they stress about a couple of hours on the road with their kids.
Yeah, but the diversity that they get, the experiences that they get, the understanding that the world is a really small place, that there's so much out there, that there's like just an incredible amount of opportunity. So that's kind of what you want to impart with anybody, right? It's again back to that mentorship. So how do you mentor your own kids? Right? It's actually a big challenge, right? How do you make sure your kids don't get anything that you have because you have to make sure that they're self-made, right? That's another big challenge. So I consider myself the 3rd generation self-made entrepreneur, right? And the first generation that made it necessarily lost it all because both of my grandparents were born on the Pakistan side of what is Greater India back then, right? So they lost everything, but different stories. My grandfather on my mom's side, so my mom's dad was an industrialist in Karachi, and he was building infrastructure, and he was very wealthy. He had exited a flour mill and had quite a bit of wealth. So he flew my mom, who was 1 year old, and her 6 siblings to Kanpur from Karachi in 1947. So getting an airplane back then was quite a feat. And then on my dad's side, they were in what is today no man's land. So they were very close to the border, and they literally walked across swamps, but they could not walk on the road or the train track because there was a lot of chaos going on there. But it was one of the biggest migrations on Earth, and it shaped a lot of people, and especially, people who are immigrants to Canada, because you actually know what it means to be displaced, right? If we never got displaced, I don't think we'd come to
Wouldn't be
Canada,
here. Yeah.
right? And I saw an interesting stat one day. Only 4% of the world lives outside the country it's born in today.
Really?
Yeah. So 96% of the people live in the country they are born in. That's quite amazing. But when you look at Canada, we're a very unique experiment. Extremely unique in the world. And there's very few of us. Only 40 million people.
That's so fascinating. I'd never actually thought about the ratio, but when you put it in those terms, yeah, I mean, our entire lineage is part of that 4%. Yeah. And I mean, on the partition side, I mean, that's quite incredible. Because being successful in that era obviously carried a lot of privilege with it, right? And then to lose all of that, but still have the fortitude to move forward and raise kids and help them shape completely new lives. And then I'm sure not even in their wildest dreams would they have thought that, their great grandkids would be living the lives that they do today or having the experiences that they do, because you can't imagine what the future is going to hold. Right?
Totally right. But, it's also values, like back then, imagine the choice: convert and keep your empire, fight and die, or run.
Mm-hmm.
Only 3 choices. right? There's nothing else. So different time and place. But I think if I look back at where Canada's going and where we were, I think Canada's becoming more tribal now, right? So I think the integration is not as good and as fruitful as it was before. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the public school participation in Vancouver, the Vancouver School Board is now planning for only 76% of the 100 future kids. So what would cause that? So then more people are going to Khalsa school, Muslim school, Jewish school, Christian school, elite schools. So then what are you causing in your society if this perpetuates another 50 years? Well, then you have the Indian education system, right? Which is primarily public education system in India is for the poor, and anybody middle class and rich goes for private education. So is that the kind of future Canada wants? So these are the kind of system thinking questions that I'm asking now.
Yeah, I mean, systemically, it's really interesting because, like years ago, Finland made this like policy change where they just decided that, I think they were having similar struggles where there was strain on the public system and there was kind of a bit of a burgeoning private system and there was a push and pull happening. And they just scrapped it all and said, okay, all education in the whole country is just free now. And we're not dealing with all of this push and pull anymore. And what they found in this kind of like, long-term study was that actually just giving everybody access to the same level of education for free, right, all the way through to university, actually had a massive impact to their GDP and created more harmony in the country and just a lot more mobility, right? Because if you have people that are lower middle class that are rubbing shoulders with their classmates who are, part of some, I don't know, like really elite or high class sort of family in Finland, then their ability to actually understand each other, to get along, perhaps even like work together in the future, like all of that goes up exponentially, right? As opposed to having just these pockets of elitism. And I mean, India, like we don't need to, talk about that too much, but it's a classically incredibly segregated society, right? Like there's just
It's very tribal.
very tribal, and both laterally, right? There's tribalism, and then vertically, right, of the amount of classism, right? And in that place, like it's not even middle class. It's like anybody's barely scraping middle class. The kids are immediately in some sort of private institution. They wouldn't even consider, right, going to public school. But you also see the issues with that, right? Is that there's so much myopic thinking as a result, because I think the orientation really becomes around, whether you're, in business or in public life, it's really becomes around how do I just take care of my people, right? How do I take care of me and the ones around me and my networks, as opposed to looking at it from a more like civic angle of we're all a part of a system. What can I do to contribute to the system? And how do we improve the system so it actually benefits everybody?
Yeah. So system thinking is hard because it requires long-term thinking. So if you look at it from a population health study point of view, it's no-brainer. You invest in your children today and you get better health outcomes in the future. So what does that mean? It means like, okay, the state of Texas doesn't care what you are, but if you're 5 years old or 6 years old, they will test you for dyslexia. It's a $20 test. Okay? Doesn't matter your status. Private kid, public kid, right? Legal, illegal, doesn't matter. They want that $20 test to have an impact in their future so those kids are not screwed up. Very simple. We don't do that in British Columbia. Why? Right? Because there's somebody making money on the business of dyslexia. Right? So everything here is structural. We make our choices. 25 years ago, you had to go to your catchment school. You had to. There's no choice. Now, there's a free-for-all. So now people who live in a neighborhood with a shitty school never want to send their kids to the school across the street. They'd rather drive the kid across town. And then that way, the government saves money because they don't have to fix up that shitty school.
Yeah, because if you've got the economic ability to be able to like ship your kids all the time, then you just
then-
deal with it.
Right. So then the government saves money in that sense. But what kind of money are they saving? It's short-term thinking. So that's the issue, is in systems thinking. If you think long-term, you're always going to save money by buying in bulk or thinking long-term or investing in now for future savings or pooling your money together. So why should the health authority spend separate money and housing spend separate money and school board spend separate money and the park board spend separate money? Why can't they pool all their money together and build like a new Britannia master community center, right? Like it wouldn't be hard, but they don't do that, right? And if they did pool their money together, then the feds will say, oh, you know what? Hey, you guys are doing something good here. We'll put some more money in too. So I think there's something called integrated planning that a lot of places are doing and succeeding at, and other places are not doing well at. So then that's kind of where we're going with the visual thinking company and data.
So what is the visual thinking company?
So the visual thinking company came out of frustration. The idea came from a big problem that I saw where a school board, the Vancouver School Board, is closing schools in transit areas where the province has legislated density. So a school near Joyce SkyTrain Station, where I went to school when I was an elementary kid, the school board just closed that on December 17th and 18th. So just a few months ago. Now, why would they close a school and remove 557 education spots from a school 800 meters away from Joyce SkyTrain Station?
Yeah, especially in an area that's been slated for density. Yeah.
By the province, legislated, right? So they say they don't need that school because they have other schools around there, which will be fine. And they say birth rates are low, and they say housing's expensive. So I said, why are you building thousands of housing units around this school that you want to close? And they go, we just told you housing's expensive. We don't believe that kids are going to live in small apartments. Okay. What about the multiplexes? Right? What about the 2-bedroom? What about the 3-bedroom? What about some kids that are actually squeezing in 1-bedrooms? Right? So I think the school board's out to lunch. So then I said, okay, well, I think I can do some entrepreneurship around this, right? So then what is that entrepreneurship? Well, it's data. So we've taken 500 government data sources like Census, Stats Canada, and then really minute data like school board meeting minutes. No one's going to go after that. Nobody would go after that except Vik Khanna.
Yeah, I was going to say, who in their right mind would be reading school board minutes? Yeah.
Vik Khanna, right? Because he cares about schools. So then we cobbled together now an incredible database, which is a data lake, and we organized it, sorted it out, made it geospatial. So now we can create things like School Space Finder. So every private school, every public school, its enrollment, the capacity, the facilities condition index. Does it have asbestos, lead pipes? Does it have good air, clean air? When was it built? Is it seismically safe? Will it kill your kid in the event of an earthquake? Then the test scores, but the real test scores, not the ones that Fraser Institute publishes. So now why would the real test scores be different than the one the Fraser Institute publishes? So the Fraser Institute does not publish the real ministry test scores. No one knows that.
I don't understand. I'm confused about that as well. What are they publishing and then why?
So they're publishing their own derivative of their version of test scores. So they take the ministry test score and then they modify it based on their parameters because their goal in life is to pump up private education. So they always make the private schools look better than the public schools. So they have a system for that, right? So if you don't have full participation, for example, they may minus you, right? So a lot of the teachings apparently are like from the Fraser Institute or like the private schools always score higher. Why? Right? But it's not the real test scores from the ministry. That's all I know. So how they make their data cannot be replicated. They don't disclose their formula. Now, the visual thinking company, if we make a calculation, we disclose our formula. And we're open for academic review. So if you're a university professor, come email us and we'll give you all our data, our sources, and so you can replicate our numbers. Because we're not into this for making a bunch of gating of the data. We want this data to be used.
Yeah, and especially these days, I mean, gated data loses trust pretty fast, right? Because with AI and everything else, what's the first question we're asking is, how is this trained? What are the guardrails? What biases are loaded into this? Because it's all a black box, right?
But I also personally believe you can no longer sell data after 3 or 4 years. So while the visual thinking company will start selling data, we want to sell it to the point where it can no longer be metered, which will tie in with the AGI cycle where data will be always perfect. So then in 3 or 4 years from now, you can't sell data. Then you have to sell intelligence, which is what we're selling right now. So then we use the data and we create intelligence out of that. So then we're selling pattern recognition workshops. And that then is going to fuel future tools that will be algorithmic. So the data then has algorithms that help people make decisions.
Why wasn't this done before?
It's just really hard to. So we started in November 2023. Kind of like there was no AI was not as good as what it is now, right? So if you remember, ChatGPT was announced November 2022, right? So then we incorporated in February 2025, but we started hiring our tech team in November 2023. So my co-founder, Josh, hired him in November 2023. And when we started, we used Fiverr, Upwork, and we would take these school board meeting minutes and long-range facility plans, and we would, AI would be junk.
Yeah.
Can't even use it. So Upwork, Fiverr, we would, transcribe them by hand. So then that was the early prototype, version 1, but never released it because time is not right to release something like that, but showed it off to 500 people, got feedback. Then version 2, we built that out, and then it didn't have the scale. It was built on something called R-Shiny, didn't have the pure scale that we needed. So they had to move to a different platform. So then we moved to version 3, and then now that is what we're just released. So School Space Finder is now out in beta, and we already got a first couple of customers. So that's kind of cool too. And the first couple of customers are real estate agents. So
Full circle, man.
right, full circle. So that goes back to the pattern recognition. Right? So it goes back to what is in your brain, what's your domain knowledge, right? So phase 1 entrepreneurship was you're trying to figure it out. Right? You're starting and you're like, what am I going to do in life? Right? So I'm selling vegetables, I'm distributing paneer, I was in scrap metal in a big way, and experimenting in all these businesses.
Vegetables, paneer distributor,
yeah,
and scrap metal.
Scrap metal.
Okay.
Right. And, hustling and trying to figure it out. What am I going to do? Then real estate, then computer hardware, then computer software. Then that, I would say that was phase 2, was when you're in the software business, you actually see scale. Bootstrapping to 120 employees in Vancouver, pretty cool.
Very cool.
Right? Not even a single investor money, pure bootstrap. Right? So that was quite amazing.
Incredible.
So then retiring, all the travel. So then the phase 2 was really solid, all those lessons, right? Angel investment lessons, all that. Now in phase 3, it's like, okay, you're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for anything except the purpose. So now you get to exercise a true definition of a company, a group of people aligned goal. You have something that no one's ever done before. You had all these government data sources all over the place, right? And no one put it together. Why would I put it together? Well, because way back in 2010, I was at a course. Now, the visual thinking company is actually a play on the Weather Network. So in 2010, I'm at Quantum Shift at the Ivy School of Business in the Maple Leaf classroom, and in comes Pierre Morissette. And he comes in and he's teaching us the class that day, little keynote. And he walks in, he goes, if you ever need to make unlimited money, find a way to sell government data. And he goes, that's what I did. I founded the Weather Network.
That was all based on government data?
500 government weather scientists published an Excel sheet across every country and jurisdiction in Canada.
It just seems ridiculous to think about it, but yeah.
And this guy comes along and he goes, I can add journalism, I can add feels like, I can add the sun icon, the moon icon, I can create the weather channel, I can create the weather network, I can go on a cable TV. What do you think happened? The guy turned into a billionaire, right? So he shared that secret with us. I parked that in the back of my brain for all those years. I had no reason to use it until the school board pissed me off.
By shutting down your school?
Well, the school board first, they pissed me off in 2019.
Yeah.
So that was the first time they pissed me off. They said they want to build my kids, Eric Hamber. They're going there and they go, we want to build a brand new school. And it should be a time of celebration. I'm thinking this is good news, right? But no, the parents are upset. So then the parents start emailing each other, right? And I get an email, action required. So on one January day in 2019 at 5 p.m., I get this email, action required. At 8 p.m., I email my MLA, George Heyman. I go, George, do you know about this? This is a tragedy. They want to build a school without space for the arts, no auditorium, half-size library, half-size lockers, and the school is going to be 30% smaller than the school is replacing. And it's going to be the same size for 1,700 kids, a smaller school, and in a growing neighborhood. This is a Canby corridor. George, nothing makes sense here. Do you know about this? He goes, no, I don't know about this. I go, okay, well, can you find out? And then I also email my friend, MLA Michael Lee, and I say, do you know about this? He goes, no, I don't know about this. I go, find out. So anyways, a year of them trying to find out, they don't find out. They say they can't do anything. I go, what do you mean? So then I go, okay, well, I got to get out my sales skills. So there's a treasury board. There's 11 people on the treasury board. I put all of them into, Excel sheet. I start calling them.
Start the follow-up list.
Start calling them, right? And emailing them, calling them, emailing them, calling them. And, it takes 7 touches to hit somebody. So I don't give up, right? I got the whole record. I know who replied, who didn't reply. I got it completely nailed down. I had 4 meetings, and it was a COVID time. And I asked people a simple question. Why do you not want to build space for the arts and an auditorium in a secondary school? If you need help raising money, let me know. I raised money for the Children's Hospital. I can get some fundraising going for you guys. They never answered the question. Instead, they gave $7 million. So the school got built with space for the arts and auditorium, still smaller than, still got half-size lockers, but it's better than it was going to be. So the government coughed up $7 million. That was my first fight with the school board.
Was it entirely a funding issue? Is that like...
I have no idea what these people are doing, right? It's not entirely a funding issue. It's like a foresight issue. Why do you think arts and auditorium are not important in a secondary school? Like, why? They're not answering that question. The question is still outstanding. And this answer is in something called the BC area standards. So the prescription for secondary schools is that they are not to be built for space for the arts and auditorium unless they get extra funding.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So then I'm asking the question, are those standards correct? And nobody wants to answer, right? So when you ask hard questions, you can't get the answer. But you will get the money. Guaranteed. Because it's too embarrassing for them to answer. So they'll always give you the money. But if you ask for the money, they won't give you the money. So the trick is never to ask for the money.
Ask the questions.
Ask the question, hardest question you can, but never ask for the money. We need $7 million for auditorium.
Yeah. Any school board would claim poverty and
They say, oh,
it's
we have
over.
no money,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And, what we can do. No. Don't ask for money. Why are you not thinking about arts and an auditorium in a secondary school? What's wrong with you people? That's what you want to ask. Do you need help? Right? If you need help, let me know. Right? Then they have no way to wiggle out of that.
Nowhere to run. Yeah.
Nowhere to run. Government is they're wasting a lot of our money nowadays because of silos. They don't plan together. Humanity lives horizontally. Government works in silos, verticals, and they don't intersect.
Very independent domains. Yeah.
Right? So government will waste on 4 studies, right? 4 people will be urban planners at a school board, park board, health authority, and city. And they don't even talk to each other, except for once, every quarter for 2 hours. What gets done? In the old days, no computers. Guess what people had to do? They had to sit behind a big drafting board and work together. Right? That was camaraderie. So we actually got more stuff built at a better cost in the old days before computers and technology than we are getting now.
The coming together and working. I mean, this is a very mundane example. But I've been, we have a small team here. I've been encouraging that more and more with my team because there's occasions where, just to kind of get ahead of the curve of our production cycle and what the work is, there's been many times where we'll just gather around the board table, right? And to just have even 6 or 7 people just working on the same thing, live conversation, and everybody will walk away with the same thing saying, we got more done in that afternoon, right, than we have in weeks of project management, right?
Yeah.
Because the social connections there, high bandwidth conversations there.
Yeah. I'm finding something pretty cool right now is just tag teaming a document for 1 hour. Such a good, powerful way, especially with AI. You tag team a document, put it back through the AI, it comes out pretty damn good. So I think the entrepreneurship cycle now in phase 3 for visual thinking company and for any new business that's emerging is actually scary, but it's also very exciting because it's hybrid employment now. It's robots and humans working together. So it's a different world coming very fast.
And it's a completely different type of work. I keep thinking that I'm on the AI curve. And even just this week, I realized that some of my own requests of the team are kind of mundane in the land of AI, right? So I'll give you a very simple but mundane example. We were doing this massive data migration project for a engineering company that's a client, and we got to build out a new web platform. Hundreds of projects, thousands of linked records we need to filter through. And in my mind, the request was to be okay, use AI to clean up the data and get it into clean spreadsheets so we can import, right? Even that was behind the curve because as we're going through it, I realized I'm oh my God, why did I have this built-in bias that the data needs to land as a clean spreadsheet? Whereas actually the request was, hey, AI, can you clean all this up and shove it into the thing that we need it in? Right. So, even as I feel I'm keeping up with it, I'm finding that my mentality on, a bunch of the work we're doing actually needs to shift because I haven't fully caught up with new ways of working and what's actually possible now, right? And when you talk about system thinking, especially, these are the variables that are at play, right? So first of all, on the visual thinking company, I just think it's very cool that you've got this data layer created. And it also kind of blows my mind that government doesn't have this for themselves. Because it does confuse me a little bit then of what decisions are based on, right? Because, you'll hear policy announcements or especially during obviously, election campaigns and various platforms are announced. But then I'm a little confused as to what that's based on and where they're pulling data from to be making decisions or even to be making promises.
There's quality of data.
Mm-hmm.
So then from a data science perspective, so we're up to nine employees now. And, a couple are data scientists. From a data scientist perspective, the data has to be inspected. So there's, how do you rank the data? So how do you say data is like, 100%, if there's such a thing, right? So what does L1 mean versus L5, level of data, right? So, ranking the data is a science. But once you get the science right, then you can say, okay, this data piece, this number that the school board is using cannot be replicated. So it's automatically L5, lowest quality data. If a number cannot be replicated, then you say why it cannot be replicated, right? So you're making a calculation. You're saying, the school board is saying, we're planning for 76 out of 100 future kids. Now, they're not telling you how they came up with the number 76. They're just picking it out of the air.
It's arbitrary.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you, like if we Google it today, right, and Google Vancouver School Board capture rate, and it's not going to be 76. It's going to be 80 something. So now if Google is telling you that the Vancouver School Board's capture rate is 80 something percent, and now they're planning for 76%.
There's a delta.
Then they're planning for less kids than they should be. Now, why? Are they trying to close schools? Well, they did on my old school, right? Now, why would they do that?
I'm sure that was a targeted hit.
Well, so this is something that's weird, right? Life is actually very impersonal, but people take it personal. So I think I took that, quite personally. But, I'm sure they were not attacking me. But if they were, they picked the right guy, right? But it's just weird how, the first fight and this fight, it's weird how a fight with a school board would go on for 7 years. That's a long time for a guy who's 55 years old. More than 10% of my life, I've been fighting the school board, right? Good adult life. And not making any money on it until, hopefully now. But, the visual thinking companies, it's got almost $500,000 investment in it. And we just launched now. So imagine that runway it takes to build this beast, right? So the data lake then powers Finder products. So School Space Finder, then Neighborhood Finder later on. So then who wants to find stuff? So then it's going to be somebody who's looking for a school, childcare, community center, ice rink, swimming pool, pickleball court. You're looking for civic amenities. So it's like a civic guide. But going back to one thing that's really important is we're proud Canadians. And when you look at Canada, we're only 40 million people who control, you can argue it, but anywhere from 15 trillion plus in value in the ground. We have the Canadian Shield. We have lots of oil. We have lots of resources. We have very little manufacturing here of our resources. We're primarily just an exporter of raw resources.
Raw extraction.
Right? So raw extraction, I think, adding a lot of value add could add a lot of employment to Canada. I think Canada is a growing country, so it cannot be 40 million people forever. It's going to be growing more. So then I think urban planning and integrated planning are vital and really important for how Canada grows up. So where will our people be? Will they go vertical? Will we grow broader? Are economic opportunities in the middle and the north right now? And are too many people stuck in Vancouver and Toronto? Likely. So then that's one thing that we want to do as part of TIE, is to bridge that and get people connected to the middle and the north, where opportunities are. So TIE Vancouver is going to expand its service area to all of Western Canada. So that's something I'm really looking forward to in the second run of the TIE presidency. But, I think these kind of things are really important to the fabric of Canada. So then that's another reason why the Visual Thinking Company exists, is because this data is important.
Yeah, because you can identify those gaps. And
you identify the coordination gaps. Mm-hmm. And then if we get multiple people working on those gaps, we save money. For example, Vancouver has 45 seismically unsafe schools. A lot of them are elementary schools, right? We have 18 secondary schools. 11 are seismically unsafe. Most of them are on the east side. But lots of elementary schools are seismically unsafe, and they're in small neighborhoods everywhere. So why would you not take an elementary school, which still has a pretty big piece of land, and chop it down, get rid of it, and build a new one with, senior housing on top, or teacher housing on top, or, unionized housing on top, and then allow that to trade on the market as strata leasehold. So the school board will make money. You have seniors or unionized workforce, which is compatible on a school property. And if they're seniors, you could have a little senior center, let them volunteer, run the gym, right? You have better healthcare outcomes. So you can co-locate social infrastructure onto these sites that are seismically unsafe and pool your money together and create something good as a community hub. The other thing that I see in the future, which is really important for society, is we're probably going to have to retrain adults. So the school system was always meant not just to educate kids, but also in the time of need for adult education. So I remember those days when I was very young, there would be night school. There was even a sitcom, night school, right? So for old people, there was always night school. And you would take that at a public school. And sometimes it would be like you and me. Our level of people would go in and teach because you need more teachers, right? So I think those kind of days are going to come back too. Why? Well, I see AI coming as something overall long-term good, but it's going to be a lot of shit show at the start and a lot of unemployment where people are going to have to get retrained to get the new jobs faster than going to university for 2 or 4 years. I don't think that model will work anymore.
Yeah, they're not going to have the time.
So how do you get back on your feet within a month, 2 months, 6 months? Those kind of quicker cycles have to happen, which your college and your K-12 system merging together can help a lot of that out. So regional skilling centers, upskilling centers at scale will be needed.
So here's where I think there's some dissonance. Like from a data and like rational thinking perspective, everything you're saying makes sense, right? I mean, there's data that shows that even like, intergenerational like social interaction is good for the kids and for the seniors, right? It's like, it just expands their whole being. It's good for the brain. It's incredible. But the will and imagination required to even consider having like an elementary school with like an attached senior center, that just seems so foreign to the way like we've shaped our society and the culture and these sort of paradigms that we're used to, right? Because that's a pretty paradigm shattering visual, right? Like it would be considered revolutionary and like weird and interesting when somebody did it. So again, from a data and rational thinking perspective, absolutely makes sense. But people aren't entirely rational decision makers, right? There's a whole emotional imagination and just will side of that as well, right?
Yeah, well, if I had my way, I'd go back to the concept of educating people locally in high quality local school. If everyone had a high quality local school, there'd be no issue, right? Then everybody would want to be walking to school, right? But that's not the future, right? It's kind of like, how do we return to where do we want to be in 50-year situation? So these kind of things move so slowly that it took 25 years to get to where we are, where you have a school space crisis and 45 seismically unsafe schools in Vancouver alone. Okay. And then you look at Surrey, you probably need to add immediately 25 schools and then plan for another 25. So the backlog in Surrey would be 50 schools. Okay, so how do you catch up on that kind of backlog? Well, you stop building bespoke schools. Number one, we're spending $150 million building Olympic Village 1 school, okay, which is 5 times the normal cost of building an elementary school. It's the most expensive construction project for an elementary school in North America, and the previous record holder was Honolulu, which would make sense. Okay. So these are the kind of numbers I know because
Wild.
I study these things. But why? Why would you make mass timber bespoke schools at 5 times the cost? You'd want to get a scaled cookie cutter, all schools, 50 of them the same. Maybe a little different, like Lego, but mostly the same.
That's the Finland way, right?
You have to, because you have a problem right now.
And they have the data. It's proven out to be better.
Yeah. Then you can do it at scale. Some should have senior centers. Some should have, union workforce, right? You could have a different mix. Surrey Langley SkyTrain, that whole SkyTrain line, if you have, say, 100,000 people around 3 SkyTrain stations today, you're going to have 600,000 in the future. How many more schools would you need just within those 3 SkyTrain lines? So that nothing's being planned like that. So I think Translate needs to get involved, right? Build some regional skilling centers right at the station.
I think there's a level of advocacy here as well, though, where it's so your approach and your thinking on this is so systemic at the end of the day, right? It's you're looking at whole systems and how, resources and information and people are moving around. And you're looking pretty far out, right? So I think there's a level of advocacy required there because, for anybody on a 3-year election cycle or less, there's a different, the incentives are almost misaligned, right? It's there's a different incentive at play there. And then there's a whole other world where, there's a through line of your long-term systems thinking, which is your work with Ty, right? And the work that you're doing with young entrepreneurs, because there as well, it's you're kind of cultivating, these fields of young people, knowing that your influence today is going to be making an impact 10, 15, 20 years out. So even your work with Ty and data and thinking about, okay, where's the population need to go to actually, better and further develop this country? I don't think I just don't think that A, comes naturally. And secondly, like I said, it's kind of misaligned with the cycles that we plan at, right? It's in business and in corporate life, it's very quarterly and annual, right? And it might extend a little bit in government to an election cycle, but even there, it's pretty siloed, right? So not only is it vertical, as you put it, right? We're looking at one channel. It's we're going to just talk about jobs, or we're just going to talk about social programs, right? And then to further exacerbate that, it's on a compressed timeline, right? Because we're only looking at a couple of years of mandate to make these big sweeping decisions.
Yeah. So it's kind of you summarized that so well. Everything comes from a hunch, and this was explained to me by Don Davies. So Don Davies is the MP, federal MP for the riding where Carleton sits in, the school that the Vancouver School Board closed near Joy SkyTrain Station. So I went to Don many times, right? And I go, Don, can't you do something about this, right? He goes, this provincial people are crazy, right? His buddy is Adrian Nix. They both were advocating to save Carleton, both powerless, right? But Don goes to me, he goes, the problem with infrastructure is everyone keeps changing what they want. And they keep changing the policy. And there's no civilian oversight over infrastructure. So he goes, you probably want, and you'd want some civilian oversight over infrastructure where it's outside or half outside political cycles. Now, how that would work or what countries do it like that, I don't know. But that was his own reaction. And he's an MP. So this is a problem. It's a national problem. So in a way, Canada has so much money that we are able to afford silos, right? So imagine that, right? So the health authority has so much money, is being spending more money than ever. We're getting poorer results. Why? Morale.
And in fact, we have multiple health authorities that have competing in different interests for some reason.
So morale, systems, right? So there's got to be a lot of reasons, right? Whatever the reasons are, one big reason is they simply work by themselves, right? They live in their own fiefdom. So they got fat and lazy, and each silo did, right? So the first thing you got to do is say, look, you all can get your budgets chopped, but you all got to work together. So work with the park board guy, share something with that guy, share something with the city, and build something together. Shared HVAC, shared construction costs. I mean, how much money are you going to save? 30, 40% minimum, plus your ongoing cost to maintain everything, right? So there's ways to save money, and other countries do that, and we've done it in the past. How many joint school board and community centers do we have? West End Community Center, Killarney, Britannia.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's some evidence.
There's some evidence of past planning, but again, those were done before saddles, before computers, right? People were draftsmen and sit down and work together. So now I think financialization, silos, budgets, this is the biggest problem. Is I'd say we have too much money and we're being foolish on how we spend it now.
Mm-hmm. So it's a problem of privilege, not necessarily scarcity.
Well, 100%. I mean, we are the richest people on earth, Canadians. There's no doubt about it.
Just doesn't feel like it.
Well, it shouldn't feel like it, right? But that's because of policy decisions, because of choices. Our leaders, our lack of drive, our lack of competitive desire, right? I think there's a lot of factors.
So what's your advice to young people then? Like, when you're working with kind of pre-entrepreneurs almost, right? Like they're just, just young people looking at the world and trying to figure out what they might build one day. In the face of everything that you described, right? What's your advice to them these days?
Be like Mo, be like Vik, find a passion, stick to it, and, build something. So create something. All young people are necessarily going to have to become way more entrepreneurial now. So they're necessarily going to have to become like you and I were and are. So what does that mean? It means you're going to have many jobs, a lot more gig work, a lot more freelance, a lot more entrepreneurial thinking, and a lot more is going to be you'll make money based on what your skill and your passions are. So if you can do that, then it actually gets you into a really magical place where you're actually living out work-life integration, not work-life balance. So work-life balance is kind of like I hate my life, I love my life, or I hate my work, or vice versa, right? And then work-life integration is, well, I like everything. It's just one continual ball. So then that's the sweet spot for young people to be in, is become so good at one thing that one thing allows you to make money, right? So if I look back at all the things that I tried to do in my phase one, I tried to be really good at winning the bid on scrap metal. And when those came in, it was like, wow, great money, right? I tried to really be good at no friends, no family in real estate sales. I tried to be really good at how to find a cold buyer, right? I got, really good at software sales, number one sales guy for sure, right? Then I got really good at, whatever you apply yourself to. I got really good at fighting the school board, right? So you apply yourself to that passion that, Malcolm Gladwell said that 10,000 hours. So what do you put your 10,000 hours into? You're going to become the world's best at that. So now, can you build something with that? That's the only advice I would give the young people, because those two things will set you up. And I'm not worried about the young people. Like the young people growing up with AI, they're going to get that automatic. It's the generation that
Squeezed in the middle.
Yeah. They may not know, so they may need help. Yeah.
Well, Vik, if somebody wants to follow your journey, whether it's the visual thinking company or whether it's you scrapping it out with school boards, where Where can they come learn more about you?
Well, so at Thai, Thai has been a really cool part of my life. 17 years as Thai charter member. So what does that mean? That means a lot of learning, a lot of meeting global international entrepreneurs. So United States, like, I don't think Canada could exist or entrepreneurship could exist in Canada without the United States. The visual thinking company right now is actually a very unique thing. We're only selling in Canada right now, right? But most, like Faronics and Deep Freeze, 90% of our sales for the United States and international.
Skyrocket. Yeah.
Right. So I think we're very fortunate that we have the United States who's right next door to us. So with the Thai world, there's many chapters, 63 chapters across 14 countries, and most of those chapters are in India and the USA. So great coverage in the USA. So whenever I go to the US, got a lot of good friends there. And there's always an annual conference. This year is April 29th to May 2nd in Santa Clara. Always in Santa Clara. That's called ThaiCon. I'll go back there this year, taking my son there for the third year. So it's also a very friendly place to bring the next generation of entrepreneurs, and they can learn too. So that's one thing I would put on everyone's radar. And then another one is that we in Thai Vancouver do every spring, we do a pitch fest, and in the fall, we do a fall pitch fest. So a spring pitch fest and a fall pitch fest. And that basically will start our programming and end our programming.
I've attended those before, and like, they're inspiring for anybody that's even been in business for a long time, right? It's like just young people come in, crazy polished, incredible ideas, so thorough, so well developed, and you sit in this room and just like be intimidated by like high school kids. It's mind blowing.
It's really cool. So like 500 kids have gone through the program in the last 12 years that we've done it. This will be our 13th year. And so the TYE program, Thai Young Entrepreneurs, grade 10, grade 11, and 12 high school kids. One of our flagship programs, 50, 60 entrepreneurs get involved, teach the kids, mentor the kids, judge the kids. Real flagship program. That was in my first presidency, I brought that here in 2011. And we've ran with it, and we won the global championship 3 times in 12 years. So we got good entrepreneurs here who really teach the kids well. So that's a fantastic undertaking. And then we're expanding the programs to Thai university kids, and then to Thai women, and then a Thai nurture program, a Thai health and wellness program. So the team has grown quite a bit. And next week we'll have our spring pitch fest at the UBC Robson Square.
Incredible.
It'll be fun. I'll call you. And then Ravi Sidhu.
East India Carpets.
Yeah. That was really cool seeing him the other day. And that story there inspires me because I've been in Canada 51 years now, and Canada's 159. But Ravi and his father came way back, and Ravi shared a story with me which was very profound. His father in World War II time got an opportunity to become an aircraft mechanic, aircraft engineer, but had to go to Saskatchewan to do the training. So he went. And over those, time there, over a couple of years there, he learned completely different things that he would never have learned if he had stayed in British Columbia.
Got the exposure.
So I go back to that as one of the most fundamental things of being Canadian is getting the exposure, right? It's just one of those beautiful things in life where you're in Canada, you're in the most diverse country on earth, and getting the exposure is what it's all about.
Amazing. Thanks, Vik.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, but it was great actually digging into your life. And I'm realizing, learning a lot about you because like you shared details of your life that I just had no idea. So it was very cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ben.
Well, hopefully we've given you a lot to think about. That was High Agency. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.